Hello, everybody. Here we are going to see some properties of a binding, which is very important part of it. Now let's move on to this one. I have got what do you mean by binding? Binding is a property associated with the source file, and it has to be determined throughout the life cycle of the program. A source file, a source program, and it has to be determined throughout the life cycle of program. It's nothing but the variable what you have defined it, how the variable is defined, what type of a variable you have defined, what are the memory location it is being stored, how the compiler is going to extract that memory, how the variable, and how the compiler is going to store that value of variable in the memory location, and what are the names which we have given to it, and what are the properties associated with it. Let me go through an example. What do you mean by binding? Binding is something like that. Let me go through this one. Yes, I have given a space here. Let's take an example. I have defined a class, and which I say X, and let me go through this one. Void M1, and I define a variable object something. Then I don't want to see X dot X is equal to new and X dot M1. This If this object is calling this function, if it is available, then the binding is working between these two. If this function is calling this way, this one, if it is not available, then you got an error. So if you call a function and it should be available in the class, and it's the cursor should has to go through that one. That is what binding is. That binding is something like that, where when you call a function, the function should available or should be present there. If that function is not available, then binding is not going to work and you get an error. The same thing happens here when we goes up. This is what the property with the name binding is the moment in the program life cycle with the associate with the. Let me go through this one. Binding, designing time. Some different types of binding. Go through this one. Some binding decision are made when the language is designed, such as binding of plus of addition. Means when you design a design type, when you're designing a program, let me go through it. If you design a program and you need to have some functions which has to be go through plus minus sign and number of formulas which you have to go, and you have to go plus addition sign, you need to go through that one. They're not going to take more designing part, and they're not going to execute more number of times. And then compiler times, what is the compiler time of a bind program is going to execute. A linking, that if you suppose you have linking time, which is very good. Suppose you have defined std.h, and you have defined a print statement, which I'm going through that C languages, it is linked to this one, the linking time. If you have defined match function, and you have defined any float or some float addition function or something, that this is the linking process. What is the linking between this four? And then after, once we design the part, how you are going to design, how you are going to see the control statement, what are the plus statement. Are we not going to give more control statement, nor more plus statement? Are we not going to give the compilation time? The compilation time is very less. For an example, let's take an example. For I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to n I plus plus, which I define, and then I write I is equal to I plus and n is equal to 0. That's it. Uh, so what happened first time? And if I give print statement here, print the value of the value of I. Okay. So what happened? I is equal to 1. Yes, control come 1 plus n 0. I'll print one value. I becomes n, sorry, should give you up I is equal to 5. I'll give you 5. Okay. I give and 5, 1 is less than or equal to 2, 5. Then it will cursor goes up 2. 2 is less than or equal to 5. Cursor becomes 3. Control goes up 4. But 5 times this print statement is executing. If I take this print statement after the for loop and print here, what will happen? I'm not going to execute this print statement 5 times. I'm going to execute this statement 1 time. This is the compilation time. Design part, you don't have to specify i's plus all the arithmetic operations and other operations. You have to see all those things taking minimum time, then linking. I've already told you this part. Run time. When you run the run, what will be the binding time of static and dynamic? We are going to see that part. But binding is a process. Binding is a process when two functions get together. When you have defined a function and where using that function, the binding goes to this one. Plus, the more important part is that it is four types: design time, compiler time, linking time, run time. This is binding. And possibly, let's go to the next slide. What is that? Yes, language design, binding operator, as I've told you, symbol operation, language binding, floating point representation, compilation time, which I have already told you, which will take into consideration in C and Java, load time, probably in Proton and static variables, runtime, non-static local variable. We are going to see this all part. These are the binding problems which you are going to see. Basically, binding is something like that. When you define, I'll go in an example. Binding is you define one program main function, and then your in C language you define a main function, and there is a part of a function which goes like switch case, where it goes and execute the part. If that switch case is not available, case one is not available, you get an error. The same thing, the binding process works out. Let's take I'll show you an example. When it comes static and dynamic binding is something. Yes, where is this one? Yes, static and dynamic binding. Static is the first occur before the runtime of a program, unchanged throughout the program. It is unchanged, and we call it as a early binding. Static is unchanged, which cannot be done. Dynamic is that it can be run throughout the program, or it can change throughout the program, and it is called late binding. We'll see an example, which we are going to see this one. Okay, this is an example of. Let me make it big. Yes, let's take example. This is about public class where we have defined it. Test case. Yes, void area, a float area. Area is a float a. Area is about this one system. We are printing the area void float. There is one more function float with float area of length into breadth. We are going system print of a circle. We are printing circle is nothing. This one. This should be, I think so, rectangle. Okay. This is your public short main string. This is one. We have assigned a test. Then we are defining two variables. This, if you define two variables, then the cursor will go where it is. It will go here. If you define one variable, set of variable, then cursor will go here. Static variable. This is a part of a static variable. Throughout the program, when you run this part, it is running this part, and the control goes up and execute this part. That part is finished. When you go for this one, it will go up here and it'll execute this part. That's finished, and the variables are not changed. The value is not changed. Once you calculate the value, you are going to put that value. You're not going to change it. That is static. Static binding is something like that, where it's not going to change throughout the program. This is another example where we have defined a class, where we have taken an area, and then we have taken a what you call area of a circle. Then other one we have taken an area of a rectangle. So once we define a data with type, if you are giving two variables, the cursor will take directly to that, because we have already defined this part. So it will take this part. This is something. Let me move to this one. Yes, I have got this one. We call it as a dynamic. We have drawn. Let's take an example. This is what we have defined. A class, test, public, void, string argument, shape, draw, rectangle, draw, new circle. Circle is also there. I've taken it. Yes, I've taken rectangular shape, and once ever this shape goes up, what will happen? This draw will take the cursor to here. This draw will take the cursor to here. This draw will take the cursor to here. What happened? This shape, new shape. What is that new shape? Extended shape. Then this also go to, this is the shape part, but this part, what is that one? New rectangle. Where is this one? Rectangle will go here. Circle will go up here. When the program executed, first part will take this values, no shape value. Then second part, it will go for the rectangle, and the third part is taking this part. So and the run time, the values are changing. The values are changing. You are printing for the rectangle, you are printing for shape, circle and other things, but you are also going to no shape. If you draw the new shape as draw, will go directly go through that one. That's not the shape. Then it will go for the rectangle. It will go for, it's something like the switch case. Means binding is a process where a function should be there when you give us. Let's other one. I'll go for the one more thing. I'll go for here. Let's take example. Let me go through this one. I'll write a simple program. Main printf, enter the value of a, scanf, a and b, scanf, percentage d, percentage d, ampersand a, ampersand b. There is no problem. Then we have got switch case. When you gave to switch cases, or we have gone to this one, then we were seeing something about static and dynamic. I was explaining you the something about what do you call binding. I can go with the help of an example which I can say, which I have already seen this one. Let's move on to this one. Okay, what we have done it, I have taken a program which simple calculator, which is a C program, and I have got an operator. I have got N1 and N2. There is a print operator plus one, entering the operator plus minus something, plus minus star and hash and other things. Then there is an operator. If the two operator N1 and N2, and I have taken that one as a double one and double one. Then let's take an example. If the star is there, what will happen? Cursor will come here. If it is a plus, the cursor will come here. If it is minus, the cursor will come up. So the first part, the first every time the statement is executed, then you switch the operator, then you come to your first one. Second time you come to this part. Third time you come to this part. Fourth time, if there is an error, return D. If there is error operator, means you haven't used these operators. This means what? This, if it is plus, this binding goes up. If it is a star, this binding will go up. This is a star, this binding will go up. Other things will go up. This is what the binding process is, this one. Okay. I have taken a switch statement and I have explained you what do you mean by binding. Let me go to the slides. Okay. I have gone through this one. Then again topic is that type checking. What do you mean by type checking? The major important of type checking is that I think so probably, let me go to the review. Yes. Major thing is that static, which can be static checking. If it is a static, you have to go for the static. If it is a dynamic, you have to go for dynamic. And the most important thing is that why we call it a strong type, because if the program is checked with type checking, it's a very strong type. Strongly typed means we know where the variables are there, we know where is the error, we know which variable is holding the value, we know where the memory location of this one, and how the values are being retrieved. For this one we call it as a strongly typed. For this one we call it as a strongly typed. Strong type, it's already supported C and C, because they use unions. They are not parameters. Okay, let me go through this one. If they are not using, another is almost unchecked conversation. Why? Because it's in a loop. We don't have to do for this one process. Now let's move on to other one. Then this is a type checking, strong type checking. Then type checking. Yeah. Let me go. Then other one. Yes. Name type equivalent. So we have got two types of compactability. One is name compactability. Other one is structure compactability. What do you mean by name compactability? Name compactability. We say that two variables, two integers or two variables having this different name, but they are holding the same value. For an example, let's go here. What is this one? Int and int x. What does that mean? There are two integers named x and y, but they are holding integer values. If I take character ch a ch b, There are two characters A and B, but they are holding the character values. If I say anything else, what do you call float B, float C, and what I call it, float A, float B. Float A is different, float B is there. There are two different names, but they are holding the float value. The same way X and Y are the name type. What do you mean by name type? Names are different, but they are holding the same values, means integer values. Then we have got character compactability. Correct. We have got structure compactability. Where, what do you mean by structure compactability? In a structure, we have different values which can you store, like integers, characters, and other. But any two data type should be like-minded. Should be like-minded. Any two will be like-minded. Any two will be like-minded. Like if we have got character here, we have got character phone, and there are two types. And then structure, if you see this one, what will happen? Structure, what is this one? Structure int, there's a month, date. There are two types of there which is there. So we are going to do this one. This is called structured data type. But there is one more problem which execute is. What is that? We have got, consider the following problem structure. There are two records. Yes, we have got employee one and we have got employee two. This one. We have got employee two. We have got employee one and employee two. Long type. The characters are same, but this one is different. See here. This one is different. We have got employee one and this one is different. This one and this one. There are two example. Consider as use a different field name. Record type compactable. If the structure are same, but they are different. Employee one, there are compactability. Two are there, but this is long ID long. The reason what this may start at 0, this may start at 1. This is what happened. Look here, I have explained you of this one. Look, consider the problem of the two record tape. They are same equivalent. The two records are same, but one can start at 1, other will start with 0. And this is the major problem in designing the part of procedures. So this is what is going to happen. This is what type. So what we have done it today is that we have seen something about what do you call type checking, static and dynamic. All those things we have seen it. Now let's move on to other one. What do you mean by constant? Constant is the value which cannot be changed throughout the program. Correct? The constant value. Let's take an example. If I have constant 5, it will not change throughout the value, throughout the computer execution part. The constant is a value that cannot be altered during program normal execution. The value is constant. It cannot be changed. Remember one thing. The next comes up. This is sequence statement. The other example, sequence of expression. What do you mean by control statement? There are implicit and there are explicit. Implicit means how the program is there, you are going to execute in a normal form, built-in execution process. The determination of order of the statement which are executed in a building execution process. Explicit, we are differing. Means what? We are giving some rules. We are giving some statements. For statement, if statement, what will happen? We will make the cursor to go in a loop. For example, for I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to 5, I plus plus. What happened? This statement will executed 5 times if the condition is satisfied. The program uses a statement to change the order of execution. Use of statement. Change the order. Here what we are going, we are just writing without any for loop or any statements. Here we are going some statements or control statement where we are changing the order of execution. This is what sequence of expressions. Now condition statement, as I told you, the program have condition statement. How can you change the rules? How can you change the explicit way of running the program? By using some condition statement. That's what I've told you. By using some explicit one, by using some condition statement. What are condition statement which we can say? What are condition statement we can say? The statement are executed once, at least once, at least once, at least at least once. Okay, executed at least once. Why it is going here? At least once. Okay, the program is executed. Sequence of statement number at least one. The control flow of examination will be different for this one. The sequence of statement which we are going to see. There are some different statement. If statement, I've already told you what do you mean by if statement. If statement, the simple structure involve us executed. If condition statement, if else condition, you have already seen this one. Correct. If else statement, you have already seen like that. If else, if condition, then statement, else if condition, then statement, else then condition. This is if else condition, if else condition. So how you define the control of the program? By defining some loops or conditions. What are they? We have seen the if statement which you have seen in your first year C language. Now what do you call, Afzal Sahab already gone through a syntax. This is what a simple. In every language, these are the if statement. Now let's move on to other one. Switch statement, which I have seen the statement example here. Where is the example? I have seen you cursor move on. With the same example, we have switch statement. It will tell the statement to execute which part is executed. Syntax switch expression. One statement break. Break means when the condition is satisfied, you break it from that. Once statement is not at the end, we have code for default. This is switch statement. The next one we want to loop. There is for loop. We go for for loop. What are for loop? For loop. We are gone for loop. What are for loop? For I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to n. These are for loop. What are the for loop? Advantage, reduce the length of the code. Yes. Take memory space. Burden on the developer. Reduce. Use the for loop or while loop. The time consumption of execution program. Time consumption of process to be execute the program. Because if you are not going for loop, you are writing length of statement one by one, then there is a problem. So in order to reduce that length of the program, what we are going to do, we use some conditions. If this condition is satisfied, we execute that part. Otherwise, we are not going to execute that part. This is part. The next one is a type of loop. We have already seen while loop, do while loop. So while loop, when the expression is true, we are executing this part. When the expression for loop, yes, I have seen expression one, expression two, different type of loops. There are while loop. Remember, while loop, for loop, and do while loop. Okay. When the condition is expression, the body of the loop is executed. When expression one becomes expression one is initialization, expression two is the condition. If this condition is satisfied, control comes into the body of the loop and it is executed and console. This is incremented. This is incremented. This is condition. This is initialization. This is for loop. And this is while condition. And most important thing is that do while. Do statement, then expression. A difference between while loop and do loop is, I'll go to the here whiteboard. The difference between while loop and do while loop. What is that one? Do loop is that when the body, here what happened? When the condition is satisfied, the body of the loop is executed. Here, first the body of the loop is executed, then the expression is satisfied. When the condition is satisfied, the body of the loop is executed. What happens here? First the body of the loop is executed, then the condition is expired. This is one. Then next, the last part of the unit 2 is something about where I can get exception. What do you mean by exception handling? Exception. Let's take an example. What will happen? Exception. You go to any of the internet or something like that. If you haven't entered the data which is not correct, what will happen? Let's take an example. Let's take an example. I'll go for this one. What do you call? Date format. Correct. The date format is DD, MM, YY. What you have to enter in this format? If you have entered 2, 10, 21, fine. If it is in this format, then you have to write 2021. If you have not entered this one, then error will pop up to you. What it says that you have entered the data wrong. Please enter the data again. The format which is given to you means, except you go to the any airlines booking or something like that. If the ticket is not available, they raise an query that the tickets are not available for you. You go anywhere, there is an exception which handles, which give you it. Exception is a problem that arises during the execution of the exception response. Means there is a problem which arises. Throw. If you can able to catch that one, yes, a program throws an expression where problem shows up. Yes, there is an error. You cannot book a ticket. What will happen? To catch it, you have to book a ticket in so and so format. You have to throw. This is one format. Then catch it. Then try. If you cannot able to catch it, then try. Block identify where particular exception is there. You need to modify or deactivate that one. So exception handling, exception, just a concept. You take the concept of exception. What is the exception? When an error comes up, you have when there is an error, it pop up to you. I'll just told you up an example. If you go to a shop, you want to have a buy a milk. Probably it's a kirana shop. If there is a no milk, what will happen? He or she will tell you that milk is not available. Then you have to go to that. That is what exception is. That if you can able to catch that, yes, the milk is available, milk is not available, I'll give you tomorrow, or you come down in the morning, I'll give you that one. That is the catching point. You go there every morning and catch that. If it is not able to try, go there somewhere else and try that one. This is what exception. I think so. Probably let me go through this one. Yes, yes. Do you go control statement, compound statement, initiative, all the statements? I have gone through all these parts, but not in an order, but in a different format. Please go through this one. With this, we'll wind up the unit 2. We'll see other things later on. Thank you very much.